My name is Amy McInnes, and this is The Art of Plenty. Whenever I've been starting my podcast lately, I've been going through this list of things that I am, like an entrepreneur, like a registered clinical counselor, a mother of 5, and I want to take this opportunity to talk a little bit more about my life because those things are definitely a part of who I am, and they're the things that I definitely draw from when I utilize this podcast as a platform. But I want to dive into talking a little bit about my life and the things that led me to be a mother of 5 and a counselor and an entrepreneur. My whole life, I have known that I wanted to be a mom. I'm not even sure why. I just know that that was a constant, that was something that I knew I was always going to do. I come from a family with 4 kids, so a big family was very attractive to me. I loved growing up with 3 brothers, and I knew that I wanted to have a big family. When I was in high school, I was taking a ton of science courses and math and all. I just had a really heavy academic course schedule. And the reason for that was because I was planning to go into med school. What I didn't realize then was the part of medicine that appealed to me was helping people heal. When I was in grade 12, I had this epiphany that if I continued to pursue medicine, I wasn't going to be able to create the family life that was a priority for me to create for my kids. So I dropped the idea of medicine completely and then found that I didn't really know what to do. Because even though I was in and pursuing medicine for the healing part, I couldn't really articulate that that's what it was that attracted me to medicine. I think that was something that I figured out later. And the funniest thing is when I was in grade 10, I did a career type course, and the job that it told me to be was a counselor. And I totally ignored it, was like, yeah, no. And it's funny because that assessment totally picked up on the things that were important to me and the things that I was good at. So after high school, I wasn't really sure what to do. And I ended up in the Philippines, and I was volunteering, and I was working in a clinic. It was a medical clinic that provided free medical care to people in the community. And I really enjoyed it, again, because I was having an opportunity to help people, and it felt like help that was really relevant. I went from there to work in a home that was for street kids. And even though I didn't speak the same language as the street kids, I absolutely loved it. I loved the energy of the adolescents. I just loved it. And I can't even pull out what it was about that experience that I loved, but I just found that it was so energizing for me. I felt like I was making a difference. And I felt like I had found a passion. I loved youth, and I loved being able to make a difference. So I came back to Canada, and I started getting my social work degree because I thought that social work would provide me with the opportunity to continue doing that type of work in Canada, which it totally did. I did my degree in social work, and then I went into working in the schools with the school district, working with kids primarily that were having behavioral concerns. And I did that job for quite a few years. And in the meantime, I got married to Jodi, who we actually dated in high school, which is really funny when I think about it. We dated for a year and a bit in high school, and then we kind of went our own way. Jodi went to university in Ontario for 4 years, and I did some traveling and did some different things. And even though we weren't really together for 4 years and we didn't see each other that much, everybody that I met was always compared to Jodi. I never really pursued other relationships because they didn't really measure up. So after Jodi graduated from university, we got engaged. I was still in the middle of my social work degree, so I finished my program and started working, and we started having our family. I think when he married me, he thought he was going to have 2 kids. Nope. We ended up with 5. But when I was pregnant with my first, or maybe just before, what I was finding in the school district where I was working is I was really frustrated. I was frustrated because I was helping these kids and we were working on things, but I felt like we never got to the issue. We never got to underneath why the behaviors were happening. And I didn't feel like I had the skills or the education or the understanding to provide real help, which is why I pursued doing my master's in counseling psych. So I went back to school while I was working full time, while I had a young baby at home. Well, I was pregnant when I was working through my master's. And then I was continuing to do that, did my practicum when she was, I think, 7 months old, and graduated from the program when I was pregnant with my second. And I was really excited to start work. So when I finished my program, I started a job as a counselor, and then I got pregnant. And the first counseling job that I had, I was working in a community organization, and I was providing counseling to kids and families and couples. And it was there that I found that I had this passion for working with couples. I absolutely loved that work. Then after my son was born, so this is baby number 2, I went and worked for child and youth mental health. And I love that job. I love the team that I worked with, and I really got an understanding in that job about how to facilitate teams that are supportive and that are value-based teams. That was a gift for me, and I think that might have been the thing that I love most about that job. When I was there, I did intake for our community, and I found that as my kids were getting older, that job was difficult because there were so many families that I knew information about because I did intake. And it's not like you really know the information or retain the information, because I didn't have the rapport with them because I wasn't counseling them, but I had their information from doing intake. And that created a lot of awkward situations for me in the community when I was at the soccer field with my kids, or swimming lessons, or doing kid drop-off. So when my husband was feeling kind of just at the end of his job, feeling like he wanted to do something different, and I was pregnant again, no surprise. I think I was pregnant for, like, it felt like a decade, just between pregnant and breastfeeding and new babies, and it was a fabulous time, but it was, I feel like I woke up and there was, all of a sudden, I was surrounded by kids. So my husband decided that he was going to leave his job and we were going to start a business. And I was going on mat leave from my job with children's mental health. And that was the beginning of our first company, which was Stillwater. After that, I didn't go back to work because we were focusing on growing our business. So I did some of the strategic development, but Jodi primarily did the work, and I primarily took care of the kids. I seen a couple clients privately through those years, but it was a very busy season. Then as my kids were getting older, I was getting excited because I was thinking, okay, I'm going to have more time to grow my practice. And I created an online course for couples who were struggling and just needed some additional support, but they weren't necessarily open to counseling. So I thought it would flow really nice with doing couples counseling if I had this online course. So I launched my pilot and I was ready to start releasing this course. And then I got diagnosed with cancer, which was a huge wrench in my plans. So we had our companies, we had a few at that time. We had our 5 kids. I was just looking at growing things, and then cancer happened. And I remember early in the diagnosis, the doctor was telling me that it was probably going to take me at least 2 years till I felt like myself again. And I felt like this is going to be like another baby, because I found that after I had babies, it would take a couple years before I felt like myself again, and then I would have another baby. So when that happened, I just kind of pushed the course aside. I pushed my private practice aside and didn't do anything with that. My husband took over the lion's share of the work, with our companies, which he was doing anyways. We also decided to expand our companies at that time and move into different areas in the province. So it was a full-on gong show while we were going through all of that. And then after treatment, it was a really gradual process. So even though I felt like myself 2 years after, still not in a lot of ways. So still found that I had to keep recovering and coping with not just the physical component of it, but the emotional and the mental component that went along with that diagnosis. Then after that, we continued to grow our businesses, and I started couples counseling again and growing my private practice, which I keep a pretty small caseload because I really love the work that I get to do with Stillwater and the course development. And all of these experiences have kind of led to this podcast. We originally thought that the podcast would be a great way to put myself out there so people would learn about the courses that I'm creating through our online platform, Stillwater Online. And we thought this is a great opportunity for people to get to know me so that they know if they want to learn from me in my courses, which I have a few out now on Stillwater Online. And what I've discovered through doing the podcast is that I really enjoy the opportunity to share my thoughts and share the things that I've been learning about. I think that has been the ongoing thread through my life, is that I really like to help people, and I'm not necessarily a hands-on type helper. I'm a bit more cerebral. I'm a bit more intuitive rather than hands-on. So I found that teaching and counseling is a way for me to help people heal, which is something that has always been important to me, even though I didn't necessarily always recognize it. I really appreciate the people that have subscribed and the people that are tuning in and listening to this podcast, because it's given me an avenue to do what I feel like I'm called to do, which is to encourage people and to share my heart and the things that I've gone through and my experiences and my education and my knowledge so that people can live the life that they know they were meant to live. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sharing this when there's a message from my podcast that you think is relevant for one of your loved ones. I really appreciate that because it helps me to get this podcast out to more people. So that's a little bit about me. And if you want to read more details, please check out my website, amymckinnis.ca. There's a little bit more tidbits about my life. Thanks so much. I'm Amy McInnes, and this is The Art of Plenty.